In this video, we're looking at UFC 292. I'm going to give you my final picks. We're going to look at DraftKings strategy, lineup construction, and I have a way for you to win some money this week without risking anything, so make sure you watch until the end. As always, you can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. If you haven't already, go back and watch the predictions video from earlier in the week. That'll be linked in the description. If you did watch that video, you know that we had a massive week for UFC Vegas 78, where I personally won over 23,000. Nearly 8,000 of that came from DraftKings using the same tools and the same plays that you find on KunithMMA.com. And for your DraftKings strategy guide, official bets for the week, projections model, and more, you can visit KunithMMA.com. A link to that will also be in the description and in a pinned comment. But again, a fantastic week. Amazing results. We look to carry that momentum into this week. Let's go. We'll start with value plays. These are plays at 8,000 and below, essentially the underdogs that you're going to need to make everything work with your salary this week, and there are a few spots that I like and a few honorable mention spots along the way. Our first value play is all the way down at 7,300. Sugar Sean O'Malley in the main event, 5 rounds to work, knockout upside for days. Easily somebody who shows up on the optimal lineup with a win this week, no matter how many points he's scored, but we have seen him score crazy points even when he's gotten, say, a third round finish. The length, the power, the craftiness on the feet, the ability to land in close, the knees up the middle. There's a lot to like about Sean O'Malley in this fight. Now, there's a really good chance that Aljamain Sterling goes out there, works him up against the cage, gets him to the ground, and just backpacks him for 2, 3, 4, possibly all 5 rounds. That's very possible, but I do think that Sean O'Malley wins this fight because of the things that we just mentioned. On top of that, for me, there's a lot of red flags for Aljamain Sterling. We've yet to see him have a dominant fight as the champion outside of that fight with TJ Dillashaw, which, as you know, doesn't really count. And even when you look at some of these fights a little bit closer, like you take Henry Cejudo, for example, Henry Cejudo is no submission threat at all. Frankly, Henry Cejudo made a lot of bad decisions even when he did have a dominant position in that fight. Things that he preaches that other fighters should do, he did not do. You would have to imagine that long layoff is why he didn't come in as sharp as he normally is, but there were a lot of little mistakes that Henry Cejudo made along the way and still only lost a split decision. Against Petr Yan, the first round was very close, and if you give Petr Yan the first round, he clearly won that fight. Sterling had success in the second round, he had success in the third round, and then for the last 10 minutes he was getting beat up. And in his first fight against Yan, where he wins the title, he was getting tossed around. He wasn't able to secure takedowns. That was the sharpest we've seen Yan in years and maybe ever. And if he didn't land that illegal knee, this isn't even a conversation we'd be having today. So I do think that Sean O'Malley wins this fight, and since I think he wins this fight with the way that he's going to win this fight, down at his price, he is absolutely one of my favorite value plays of the week. Our next value play is Damon Blackshear coming fresh off a twister. Damon Blackshear doing BMF things, showing up a week after he just got one of the biggest wins of his career to fight Mario Bautista, who was already on a full camp, already knew he was fighting this week. You're going to want to make sure that Damon Blackshear makes the walk. He has to make weight back to back, and I don't care how he looks on the scales. I'm not into that. I truly do not care at all what a fighter looks like at weigh-ins. Oh, they're shucked out. Oh, they look like they had a bad weight cut. That doesn't matter to me at all. If a fighter misses weight by a significant amount, then yeah, I think maybe in the third round they won't look as good, but if they're making the walk, they're making the walk. It's a binary thing for me. They either show up to fight or they don't. I'm not worried about weigh-ins. So if Damon Blackshear can show up, I do like him this week against Mario Bautista for a couple of reasons. First is I'm high on Damon Blackshear as it is. He fought Youssef Zalal in his debut. He gassed out in the third round. Had he not gassed out, it would have been a clean win for him. Youssef Zalal has not had a ton of success in the UFC, but he's a tough fight for anybody. He follows that up with a loss to Farid Basharat. The Basharat brothers are no joke. I don't mind that loss, and the takedown defense from Farid in that fight was absurd. But after that, he picks up the pieces. He fights Luan Lacerda, absolutely runs through him, and that's when the momentum is starting to pick up. The wheels are a-turning for the monster. He fights Jose Johnson just last week, made it look easy, took him down, got the twister in the first round, looked damn good, 115 DraftKings points, thank you very much. And the reasons why I like Damon Blackshear so much is because of that style that he has. He throws heavy hands, heavy kicks. He's a very powerful guy as it is. He's slick on the mat. He's very active on the mat, and I think that's going to give Mario Bautista problems this week. Mario Bautista is very good, but coming in at around a minus 250 to minus 300 range is a little bit wide, and a lot of that has to do with the short notice nature of the fight. Had this not been short notice, I don't know what the odds would look like. Given Bautista's recent run in the UFC, I would imagine he'd probably be minus 130, minus 150 if this was a full camp on each side, but maybe not, because Mario Bautista tends to get a lot of love from the betting lines. Just look at his salary in his last 5 fights: 9,700, 9,100, 8,700, 9,200, 9,100. He lost at 9,100, by the way. He was knocked out in the second round. But my biggest thing about Mario Bautista is this: Jay Perrin, we know that he's not a great grappler, didn't have a whole lot of business being in the UFC. Brian Kelleher is a scrappy guy, but he does get finished. He can be exposed on the mat, and Mario Bautista did exactly that, and you expected him to do that in that fight. Don't expect Benito Lopez to win a whole lot of fights at the UFC level. And then Guido Canetti at 43 years old, a first round win over him. This is the fight that sells me on Damon Blackshear. Now, if you just look at the fight log and look at the stats and say, well, he took Guido Canetti down 3 times, he submitted him in the first, he scored 111 DraftKings points. Kunith, what am I not seeing? Well, if you go back and watch that fight, it doesn't take very long to do. The fight starts at range. Guido Canetti, for the couple of seconds that they're striking, is winning the striking exchanges. He's kicking the legs off of him. Mario Bautista closes distance, gets the takedown. When he's closing the distance, when he hits the clinch, his neck is right off on the side. Guido Canetti grabs up a loose guillotine. Red flag number 1. Once they go to the ground, Mario Bautista gets to half guard, where Guido Canetti starts rocking him back and forth and is able to get back up to his feet and even secure submission of his own. That's red flag number 2. Bautista gets up to his feet, gets another takedown, and again, he leaves his neck in harm's way. Guido Canetti grabs up a loose guillotine. That's red flag number 3. You drop Damon Blackshear in those same situations, and he finishes Mario Bautista. So I like Damon Blackshear this week because of the grappling, because of the opportunities that Mario Bautista is going to present, and I think that he wins some of the striking exchanges as well. A chance to make history for the monster this week. Now, I do worry about the back-to-back fighting. I worry that he won't look good late in this fight, but Mario Bautista doesn't always look great late into fights either. I think he's either going to finish Damon Blackshear early, or he's going to find himself getting finished probably in the late first or second round. There are going to be a decent amount of people that get there because of what he just did a week ago, but I do think that Mario Bautista will get his respect, and I think we'll see a lot more people on the favorite this week on DraftKings, but give me the monster at 7,100, great value. Now, for me, the last value play, personally, the last value play is $6,700 Denis Tiuliulin. We talked about this on the predictions video. Gregory Rodrigues fights to the level of his competition more than you'd like to see. And in his last fight against Bruno Ferreira, he's winning the fight cleanly, but you can tell there's a lapse in judgment. There's almost a little bit of showboating if you go back and watch that fight. It's not very explicit. It's not very outward. To me, it looked like he went from fighting one way to another way. He looked like he started fresh, cautious, clean, alert. And then when he realized that he was the better fighter everywhere, he took his foot off of the gas. He started admiring his work a little bit. He was painting pictures in there, and he painted a picture for too long, hung out in the pocket. He already has bad striking defense, gets chin checked, knocked out cold. So what happens? He gets knocked out cold. He comes back and fights another power puncher. Scary times for RoboCop. He needs the fight to the ground. Denis Tiuliulin can't grapple, and if you go out there publicly, you're going to hear a ton of people saying, well, Gregory Rodrigues is just going to take him down. He can definitely do that, but that's not really what he's looking to do. Against Bruno Ferreira, 0 takedowns. 1 takedown against Chidi Njokuani, who was absolutely gassed in the second round. Denis Tiuliulin's not going to give up like that. Chidi actually gassed out about 3 minutes into that fight, and then you have that fight against Julian Marquez where he was just packing him up. He knocked him down 3 times. He didn't need to take him down. 2 takedowns against Armen Petrosyan, who is just like Denis Tiuliulin. The man cannot grapple at all. But what's he doing with the takedowns? Nothing. Denis Tiuliulin, if he has been working on his get-up game, which I would assume is the only focus in his camp, the guy doesn't need to hit a single mitt. Denis Tiuliulin needs to spend exactly 0 seconds on the heavy bag. He does not need to be striking with anybody. He does not need to be working on that power, that speed, that timing. He just needs ASIC wrestling shoes on all the time. I want him sleeping in his ASICs. I want him showering in his ASICs. I want him to go to weddings wearing his ASICs wrestling shoes. Do not do anything, Denis Tiuliulin, except wrestle, and that's what I'm hoping the focus of his camp has been. Because if that is the case and he is able to keep his feet for even 2 to 3 minutes in this fight, then he is going to knock out Gregory Rodrigues. And I'm a Gregory Rodrigues fan. Don't think that I have anything against the man. I'm a big RoboCop guy, but when you look at the matchup, you look at the salary, you look at him being 10-7, 1-2 in the UFC, who's getting here? Not many. A lot of people will look at that last fight against Iron Turtle and think, okay, the same thing is going to happen, which it very well could. But if we are already playing a game of risk, already playing a game of chance, and I'm willing to take a chance on the guy with some of the highest finishing upside on the slate, especially as an underdog, give me Denis Tiuliulin, great value if he gets the knockout win, especially in the first round. And those are my value plays. There are some honorable mention value plays along the way. You guys do not need to keep telling me Marina Moroz beat Karine Silva. I know this. I don't mention it because it's so long ago that it's almost irrelevant information. A 20-year-old Karine Silva versus a 29-year-old Karine Silva, those are two different fighters, starkly different. And I don't want to be too high on Marina Moroz because yes, she is tough. Yes, she will fight hard. Yes, she's never been finished. I understand all of those things. I understand that she submitted Karine Silva in the first round 9-10 years ago. But you look at these wins. Maria Agapova, she's not very good. We know that. Mayra Bueno Silva is a great win, but that was also in 2020. Again, these are old wins. I mean, 2020 is not that long ago, but Mayra Bueno Silva is on the cusp of a title shot right now. These two, if they fought again, she's not winning. Mazo, pound for pound, the physically weakest fighter to compete in the UFC. So no, I'm not too concerned about Marina Moroz winning this week. I think that Marina Moroz gets finished. I think Karine Silva ties the series. I see a lot of love for Kurt Holobaugh as well because the guy has big power. He's going to come out and fight hard, and he's going to be a lot faster and a lot stronger than Austin Hubbard. I appreciate all of that. I just worry about his gas tank against somebody in Thud Hubbard who's just going to keep coming forward. He's going to keep fighting you hard for all 15 minutes. Austin Hubbard is a tough guy and a hard guy to put away. So if he doesn't put him away, if Holobaugh doesn't win in the first or second round, you have to think that he's going to lose the third. If Hubbard wins the third round and he makes the first two competitive, he can steal a decision here, and that's what I think is the most likely outcome. I do see a lot of people getting to Kurt Holobaugh this week. I'm not sold. I see Pedro Munhoz getting some love this week, which I understand. Pedro Munhoz is always a tough fight, always somebody who's going to bring it, but this is such a low pressure spot for Marlon Vera. It's not a main event. It's not a co-main event. It's not 5 rounds. He's going to be able to just do whatever he wants. Pedro Munhoz, for as tough as he is, as good as he is, as experienced as he is, he does give fighters a lot of the tools and a lot of the ammo that they need to be successful in these fights by moving straight forward, not moving his head all that much, not looking to mix in takedowns very much. I think that Marlon Vera is just the slicker guy. He lands the bigger shots. It looks prettier when he lands, and he gets bigger reactions from the crowd. Chito's a hard guy to cut. He's not going to wear a whole lot of damage typically, and he's also throwing a lot of elbows, which could open up Pedro Munhoz and make him look bloody and beaten and on the judges' scorecards losing. But those are my value plays. The other ones are honorable mention. If you want to mix some of them in, that's cool. We can mix some in as we build lineups, but now we have the ammo to build these lineups. But before we do, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm, and if you want to go a step further, share this with somebody you know is going to be watching the fights this weekend. All free ways to support the channel. I really appreciate it. Now we can start building some lineups here. We'll start with cash game lineups. These are for your 50-50s, your double ups, your head-to-heads. Play your cash games, people. I get messages on KunithMMA.com all the time about people playing their cash games, just doubling up. It's not going to make you rich in the short term, but it does a lot of good things for your bankroll. Let's say you're allocating $100 to tournaments. Let's say you're playing the $40 single entry, $12 single entry, and you're throwing the rest at the big contest. Cool. You can offset those if they don't go your way with cash game winnings. And if you have weeks where your tournament lineups do well and your cash game lineups do well, that's where your bankroll is going to start making leaps and bounds. So it's very intelligent for you to play your cash games and your tournaments side by side. Now this week, when you're building your cash game lineups, it's actually tougher than it is for most weeks. It's actually tougher to do a lot of things this week because of how juiced up the favorites are. PRP betting is tough. You've got the cash game lineups that are tough to build. And the reason why I say it's tough is because you look at the main event, you look at the co-main event, I don't see either of those fights going beyond 3 rounds. But those are 5-round fights, and the whole point of stacking 5-round fights is to capture 5 rounds worth of upside for a loser in most cases, and I don't think that's going to happen this week. Frankly, I could see Zhang Weili running through Amanda Lemos in the first round, and I think that Sean O'Malley wins in the first or second, or Aljamain Sterling submits him before the third. So with that being said, how do we approach it this week? Well, I do still want to stack, but where are we going to stack? I think there's a sneaky stack to be found. Natalia Silva and Andrea Lee. This is a stack that nobody else is going to run, and this could pay off for you. Natalia Silva is giving you decent points, 85, 85, 109 points. She's averaging just over 93 points, and I think she could win this fight by decision and probably score around 80 to 90 points, which is great. But I think the even better part about this is Andrea Lee. If we look at some of Andrea Lee's losses, decision losses that is, and how many points she scored, the numbers are crazy. 39 is okay. 54 points in a decision loss is absurd. 71 points in a decision loss is absurd. 43, 56. It would not surprise me one bit if Andrea Lee is the highest scoring losing fighter on the slate, and that's why she gets stacked with Natalia Silva. We have a guaranteed winner here and a very good good loser here. Very good punt play at 6,800. So we have our punt play. We're going to follow that up with another punt play this week, and I like $7,100 Damon Blackshear here because of the price. That leaves us with 8,900 per fighter to build the rest of the lineup. I like Zhang Weili at 9,200. I like Brad Katona, who's somebody that we haven't talked about because he wasn't here for the predictions video. Brad Katona is interesting. I don't want any part of him for my tournament lineups, but I like him for cash games because I expect him to win. He's the better wrestler, the younger fighter, the better athlete, and somebody who had better success in the UFC. He will become a two-time Ultimate Fighter winner this week when he beats Cody Gibson. I like Brad Katona to get it done, and at 8,500, give me some of that. $9,000 Brad Tavares looks pretty good this week. I'm a little nervous about putting Aljamain Sterling in there. I'm going to go with Andre Petrosky at 8,900. Andre Petrosky goes out there and consistently gives you high DraftKings scores. Now that is just an idea. You can build your lineups based on that idea, but my thinking is we avoid stacking the main event this week. That's a good way to get different in cash, which I know is not the biggest deal in cash, but getting a little different never hurts. And on the topic of getting different, we can build some tournament lineups. How do we get sneaky? How do we win all the money this week? Let's just start building a lineup and we'll see where it takes us. I like Zhang Weili. Let's go ahead and grab Karine Silva at 8,300. Let's go ahead and grab Andre Petrosky at 8,800. Now we need some dogs. Let's grab Denis Tiuliulin. Let's grab Damon Blackshear, 9,900. I can come all the way up here to grab somebody like Garry. I don't mind this at all. You have finishing upside from the first, second, third, and fourth spot. You have the grappling advantage here, and you have Garry, who not only is going to beat Neil Magny, but here's the thing that kills me about Neil Magny. Look at Neil Magny's most recent losses. He got submitted by Gilbert Burns, submitted by Shavkat Rakhmonov. Both are better fighters than Garry, but he's gotten finished in his last two losses. Let's keep going. He loses a 5-round decision to Michael Chiesa where he landed 12 significant strikes. That's essentially landing one significant strike every 2 minutes in that fight, which is absurd, and he put up an absolute stinker. 22 points in a 5-round loss is crazy. Let's keep going. He gets finished by Santiago Ponzinibbio in the fourth. He gets submitted by RDA in the first. He gets knocked out by Lorenz Larkin in the first. He gets submitted in the second round by Damian Maia. I have to go all the way back to 2013 to find his last 3-round decision loss. So when Neil Magny loses, it's inside the distance, and Garry probably scores a good amount of points this week. Now, if you came off of Garry and you wanted to get a little bit cheaper so you can get a little bit different, then you can come here to somebody like Natalia Silva at 9,400. Brad Tavares is somebody who's super interesting this week from a DraftKings perspective. Brad Tavares has been in the UFC for over 13 years. He's only won by knockout twice. No one in your tournaments is going to want to play Brad Tavares, and it's really for good reason. My thinking, however, is that if you do play Brad Tavares and you're getting different and he comes up with a finish, then you are in a great spot at 9,000. And I say that because you look at Chris Weidman's losses. He gets finished in the first round, albeit this was a leg break, but a first round loss. That's against Uriah Hall. Dominic Reyes knocks him out in the first round. Jacare knocks him out in the third round. Gegard Mousasi knocks him out in the second round. Yoel Romero knocks him out in the third round. Luke Rockhold knocks him out in the fourth round. These are all Chris Weidman's losses. Every time he loses, it's inside the distance. It's almost always by knockout, and Brad Tavares is going to be swinging. He's not swinging with a whole lot of power, but he's swinging. If he gets you that knockout at 9,000 at low ownership, I don't mind that one bit. And if you wanted to make an adjustment at this point, you could come off of somebody like Karine Silva. If you're worried that Marina Moroz repeats, I'm fine with that. I get it. If I'm in this situation, I'm picking Aljamain Sterling right here because you're going to need the winner of Sterling versus O'Malley. I'm going to pick Aljamain Sterling to fill out the last spot. Now, let's say you wanted to build a lineup with the other side of the main event. So you put Suga in there at 7,300. Let's say it came down here to Denis Tiuliulin at 6,700. You've got 9K to spend. You can pretty much do whatever you want. So let's say we did go with Andre Petrosky. We went with Zhang Weili. You grab somebody like Chito Vera at 8,600. And now you can come all the way up here to Natalia Silva if you wanted. Or we take Natalia Silva out. We leave a little bit of salary on the table to get different. We put Brad Tavares in there. I don't mind it. If you wanted to get super different, you take Chito out and you come down here to Karine Silva. What's making this most different is that you have 700 salary left over because you're playing the main event winner, you're playing the co-main event winner, hopefully. But a combination of Brad Tavares, Denis Tiuliulin, and leaving 700 salary on the table is not something you're going to see in a whole lot of your contests. Now, let's say you do think that Greg Rodrigues is going to win, just to give you another look. I'm still plugging in Weili. It's hard to not want to play Weili this week. 7,800 left over. I'll come here to Blackshear. I'll come here to somebody who is an honorable mention. Let's grab Kurt Holobaugh. Let's see if he can win inside the distance. If he can, you're in a great spot. Now, 8,200 remaining salary puts us in a tricky situation. So at this point, what you could do is say grab somebody like Sugar Sean O'Malley, so that way you have like 9,100 left over to spend per fighter, and you can grab anybody from Mario Bautista and down. And one more just to give us a look, if you really wanted to get funky and go against the grain, you could grab Gerald Meerschaert because GM3, for those of you that don't know, 100% finish rate in the UFC. Andre Petroski is going to look to grapple, and if you grapple with GM3 for too long, it's normally bad biscuit. So let's say we plug GM3 in there. I'm being told by people in the comments that I'm sleeping on Amanda Lemos at 7,000, so let's plug her in. Now you've got 8,900 left over. You can grab Aljo, so you still have 8,900 left over. Let's say we grab Silva at 8,300, we grab Bautista at 9,100, we grab Brad Tavares at 9,000. This is strange, different, weird. I don't like this lineup one bit, but like we talk about so often, it's not about liking your lineup, it's not about liking the players that you want to play, because most of us like our lineup, we plug it in and we lose. A lot of times people who spend the most time on their lineups are the ones that are losing. They're cooking it up, they're getting the perfect lineup, and that's not how DFS works. The way DFS works is you project, I think this guy's going to go highly owned, I think this guy's not going to be so highly owned, and I think he can finish. So let me grab the guy who's not highly owned and can finish. If he wins, great. If he loses, you took your chance. You're taking a chance every time you enter these contests anyway. Don't put too much stock into the people that are in your lineup. You play the lineup that you play, you trot it out there, and you do your best. But don't try to be some mad scientist cooking up the perfect lineup, because 9 times out of 10, that's probably not going to work for you. And if you're someone who loses all the time, like you listen to 10 different channels, you're taking advice from here, advice from there, and now you're all kerbobbled, you're all jumbled up, then a strategy that you might want to implement is building a lineup that you think is perfect, absolutely perfect, and then doing the exact opposite. Oh, I really think that Sean O'Malley's going to win this week. Play Aljamain Sterling. Now that's for people that are consistently losing, but if you are somebody like that's on kunithmma.com and you build your cash game lineups the right way, then you're probably not losing all that often. So just keep that in mind. If you're somebody who doesn't want the resources and you're trotting out these lineups week in and week out and it's not working for you, just do the opposite of what you've been doing and you'll realize more success. And we'll finish up by looking at Underdog Fantasy, a great way for you to play. You can actually do PFL on here now as well, which is sick. Here are some of the PFL striking and takedown numbers, but if we're looking at UFC 292, this is the can't miss slip of the week. You've got Zhang Weili, 12 minutes of fight time. We're going under that, baby, definitely. You've got Marlon Vera, 73 strikes. He's going over that for sure. Brad Tavares at 43.5, we're going over that for sure. Essentially under a round of fight time in the RoboCop fight, I like that. And over 44.5 significant strikes for Thud Hubbard, I'd like some of that as well. It's a can't miss slip. You can do the insurance if you'd like. They have the insurance function down here. The insurance function will allow you to not only play these, but if you're not perfect, it's still going to pay you out 2.5 times your money. If you're perfect, you get 10x on your money. Now with promo code Kunith, or the link that's going to be in the description, you could go ahead, go in here and have them match your first deposit up to $100. So let's say you put $50 in there, they match you 50 and you want to put 50 out there to play. You can use their money, put up that $50 risk-free bet on this slip right here. If it hits, you've won $500, and if it goes 4 out of 5, you've won $125. And the great part about their service is that it's not only pick'em, they have best ball drafts, they have live betting as well, and you could do this with anything. You could do this with esports, you could do this with baseball, you could do this with cricket, anything. The possibilities are endless over at Underdog Fantasy. It's a great way to support the channel. If you want to go over there and make your first deposit, you make your first deposit. It doesn't matter what it is, they give me money. It's nice. So go check out Underdog Fantasy if you want another way to play these games, because sometimes when we play Draftkings, let's say you have Karine Silva, Marina Moroz this week, you have Marina Moroz in your lineup, Karine Silva packs her up in the first round, you've lost already. If that's the case, come back to the video, hit the link in the description, open your account with Underdog Fantasy so you can still get some action on the fights and not be an automatic loser. If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. We really do appreciate it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm, and I will see you next week.